You see, it's all about balance. Sorry if you can hear that, by the way. It's absolutely hammering it down here in the West Midlands. So if you've just clicked on this video, you'll likely be wanting to know about composing music with chord progressions, or are just interested in how and why chord progressions work. Now, full disclaimer, I am relatively useless when it comes to music theory. I mean, I'm not utterly useless. It's just not my strongest category within guitar and songwriting. But here's the thing. I have a fairly simplistic mind, which enables me to think outside of the box in order to put things in a box in ways that are easier to understand. At least to me. And I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments if I don't. Sorry, this rain is horrendous. So to start the conversation of what makes a good chord progression, we're going to talk about photography. Hear me out. So I enjoy dabbling in photography. I'm not particularly any good at it, but it's nice to have hobbies. And when trying to learn photography, one of the first things you come across is the rule of thirds. So to the unacquainted, cameras often have grid lines in the viewfinder or LCD screen that separate the image into 3 horizontal and 3 vertical sections. Imagine a hashtag, but wider. Sorry, I just had to stop filming for a bit there because the rain was like cats on a tin roof. No idea if that's something people actually say. Sounds like it should be though. Right, so back to the rule of thirds. The idea being that your subjects, be them people, buildings, the horizon, are placed along the intersectional lines to bring balance to your composition. Now, don't ask me why this works. I think our brains are just hardwired to process visual information in this way. Perhaps because we have our dead center vision and our peripheral vision. 1, 2, 3. Now, an important point is that images don't need to be perfectly balanced, i.e. symmetrical. Our brains seem comfortable with the concept of third lines making it a balanced image. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, as far as I can fathom, there are no comparable rules to the rule of thirds within guitar or music. But there are patterns within music, particularly within chord progressions, that I think we might be able to summarize with something as simple as the rule of thirds. We'll call it down, up, down, up, down. Or maybe somebody could think of a better name. So let's start with the most common chord progression in modern music. The 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression. And in the key of C, it's C, G, A minor, F, and C to close the loop. Right, let's grab a guitar. Minor Z. So we'll all have heard this chord progression multiple times. It goes like this. So the C chord is our home chord. When we're playing in the key of C, the C chord obviously has all the notes of a C chord. C, E, G. Think of this as our grounding chord. So the G chord, the dominant fifth, is the furthest we get away from the home chord. And as such, it feels furthest away from home. From the C, it kind of feels like we've lifted up and off the ground. So let's chuck that one up here. Now the A minor, despite being numerically the furthest away, is actually the closest chord in our progression to the home chord. And that's because it has 2 of the same notes, the C and the E. It just moves our original open G note up 1 tone to an A note, creating an A minor. So it has more of a melancholy feel being a minor chord, but other than that, it feels very close to our home chord. So we're going to put this one back on the ground. So our 4 chord, the F, Doesn't feel as far away or up in the sky as the G did, but it's still very unhomely. Listen to the progression from A minor to F, and it definitely has an on the ground, up in the air, home, away feel to that transition. So our F chord is going to go up there, and including our home C chord to close the loop, the picture has balance to it. Home, away, home, away, home. Or down, up, down, up, down. It's a pattern, a balanced pattern, and it works in musical composition because it has tension and resolution. Now, it's not perfectly symmetrical, at least when we hear it. A minor isn't quite as home as the C chord is, and F perhaps doesn't quite have the same altitude that the G has, but zoom out and we can see balance in our musical composition, much like the rule of thirds in photography. Now this works if we start moving our chords around. Let's try C, F, A minor, G, closing on the C. Still works as home, away, home, away, home. And the shape is still balanced. So what if we start on a different chord? The A minor. Well, as long as we maintain the pattern, home chord followed by an away chord, and so on and so forth, it still sounds balanced. Now this still works if we flip the whole thing on its head. Let's start with an away chord or up chord. If we maintain a balanced pattern, we get F, C, G, A minor, and back to F. It has a different feeling of tension to it as it never quite gets resolved, always landing back on that 4 chord, the F chord. And that can be a very clever way of enticing the listener to stick around to hear what happens next. It kind of begs the listener to keep moving, but the progression remains balanced, and that's why it still sounds pleasing. It's just upside down. But what happens if we mess up that balance? Throw it out the window. We're creatives, we do what we want when we want. Let's go with G, F, A minor, C, and back to G. Up chord, down chord, down chord, up chord. So apart from looking like a constellation, it isn't balanced. Does it sound balanced? No. It's not necessarily wrong, it contains all the permissible chords, and I can't stop you using it. Just like the rule of thirds, rules are often there to be broken, and many of the best images break the rule of thirds. But there's a time and a place, and often an accumulated level of experience when it comes to breaking rules. This progression could, for instance, work as a bridge, or a middle eight, or an outro, or something intentionally jarring and a bit off. But that's the point, really. It just sounds a bit off. There's no balance. And it's all about balance. Oh, and before I go, if you got something out of this video, it would be really cool if you could gently tap the like button, and it'd be even cooler if you consider subscribing for more. And I'll see you in the next video.